I'm Matt Landau from vrmb.com, and this is Unlocked, Season 7, Unglamorous. This episode's brought to you by Point Central, the leaders in smart home automation, and Breezeway, a property care and operations platform. Eric Broughton is the Chief Strategy Officer of Inhabit IQ, which owns a number of vacation rental service providers and has frankly not always had the most forthcoming reputation in our industry. In his defense, Eric wasn't in that position in those early days. He's relatively new. So this conversation was originally designed to clear some of the air. But as you'll hear, Eric has an incredibly strong understanding about how fragmented industries typically evolve, the role of private equity in software development and consolidation, and what techniques make you, the vacation rental leaders of the future, powerful in the next phase of our industry's growth. Your official job is Chief Strategy Officer.
Yes.
Now, what was the job description that you accepted? What does that consist of?
Yeah, great question. So Chief Strategy Officer, and it's kind of an evolving new title, and it's really more about working in tandem with the CEO and the board of directors to understand the direction of the business and then executing in that direction. So we already have a great COO, great CFO, outstanding CEO in Lisa Stinnett, but it was kind of looking at how do we bring somebody on like myself that's not really a chief revenue officer, not really a president, not really, supposed to be more. And it's because of a different perspective that I bring to the organization. And it's also just a unique organization overall in how we've, brought together these great companies. So long story short, it's more than strategy. It's bringing these groups together and executing the strategy that has been defined by the board and the CEO.
And for those who don't know it, what companies does Inhabit IQ own in the vacation rental space?
Wow, in the vacation rental space, we have quite the group, and it's one of the things that excited me so much. I'll start with Streamline and their property management systems. We have Streamline, we have LiveRes, we have VRM, and we have Super Control in the UK. And then on the digital marketing side, Blue Tent, Q4 Launch, and BizCore. We also have Lynbrook for payments. We have Rental Guardian for screening. And then we have, for insurance. And then we have LSI as well. And if I forgot anybody on the vacation side, I apologize.
And these are all companies that most of us in the industry have known for a long time. And Inhabit/GSV, what is the relationship, by the way, between Inhabit and GSV?
GSV, Greater Sum Ventures, was one of the first groups, or is the first group to begin aggregating up these great organizations. So Greater Sum Ventures is a private equity firm. Interesting enough, it began just about 12 years ago. And they did this first strategy with actually church software. So it took this industry of just different pockets of church software, started buying them, acquiring them, and bringing them together and put their synergies and create $1 billion plus organization out of church software.
What is church software? I don't even know. I mean, granted, I'm Jewish, but what does that do? What do you do with that?
I'm assuming it works for synagogues too, but it's about
a new niche,
right? I'll mention that to them, but it's about the communication. It's about a portal. It's websites. It's frankly payments and tithing. It brings all that together. Not too dissimilar from a property management system, but more of a church management system.
And the plan was approximately the same as it applies to the vacation rental space.
That's right, exactly. And the lesson learned, and something that probably as well, as you really start with that core. So actually, Streamline was one of the first acquisitions, and then you build around that more of a hub and spoke model. That's really key to the strategy. And once you have those cores in place, you're able to really provide a great ecosystem to your clients.
So before we get more into Inhabit, because I have a gazillion questions, I'm going to try to move
Love it.
relatively quickly. I do want people to know a little bit about you. You mentioned that you're living in Chicago. So first things first, where do you take your friends when they come to visit? What's the first restaurant you take them to?
That's a great question.
I got
Well,
three
first
quite
we
great
start.
questions in the first 10 minutes of this interview.
I
Watch out.
I know, I know, right? So right away, you got to go to Portillo's.
Okay.
You get a
Nice
beef
hot
and
dog.
cheddar croissant, or you
Yeah.
get a nice dip going on. And then for pizza, you got to go to Giordano's, so you get a nice Chicago style deep dish. And then usually about that time, they're just in food coma, so we have to pause a little bit.
Okay.
And then I say my buddies are in town. We'll go to a Cubs game. If it's family members in town, we'll go to a White Sox game.
Okay, that's fair. And
Yes.
you're I think the first official guest on this podcast to go to South Dakota School of Mines and Technology.
Outstanding. I'm so surprised.
And what that's a engineering school?
It is. It is a mining school, a mining and technology, and then I'm an electrical engineer by schooling. But yes, grew up in a small town and a small farm in South Dakota, and then to me, growing up, Harvard and Yale were just T-shirts you might buy at Walmart, or Target. So
Hmm.
didn't really know anybody that went there. So I kind of asked around as a kid, where do the smart kids go? And it was South Dakota School of Mines. So that's where I went. I also played football there on scholarship, so put myself through working some odd jobs, and I was a guard at the art gallery, good things like that.
A guard, like a security guard?
Yeah, because you could do homework, and it allows you to work on my math problems, calculus one,
Sure.
two, and three, while I was
There was
becoming.
no there were no crimes that took place, I hope, during that period.
There were no crimes. There were barely people looking at it. Engineers aren't really big art lookers, so absolutely.
So I think if I'm not mistaken, your sort of foray into the world of real estate. Well, you were doing real estate stuff before, but your foray into the world of vacation rentals started with Apartment Jet, correct?
That's right.
And explain basically the premise of that business.
Yeah, so to your point, I had two other startups in the residential real estate space. And as I was selling my second startup to RealPage, I sold the first two to RealPage, and I kept on hearing these large asset owners, and we're talking multi-billion-dollar assets, being very frustrated with Airbnb coming into the space, to the point where they said, I feel like I own a car dealership, and Uber drivers are just driving around with my cars, and I get nothing out of it. So
Now, these are the owners of multifamily complexes.
yep, that's exactly right. So these owners of these multifamily complexes, they may own, and we're talking 10, 20, 30, 100,000 multifamily units. And like I said, you have investments from JP Morgan or New York Life, and you're managing them. And what we found was that I just spoke to them because I'd sold these other companies that could have a conversation. I said, okay, let's talk about the sharing economy. Let's talk about what you want from Airbnb and the likes. And Airbnb is like the Kleenex brand to them. So they just refer to all short-term rentals for good, bad, or indifferent as Airbnbs.
Right.
And at the time, Airbnb is had a great presence, or had a presence in the space. They were coming to these events, but their value proposition was not well positioned. So you tell somebody that owns a 250 unit apartment building, hey, guess what? Your residents are listing on Airbnb. Isn't that great? And they say, okay, what's in it for me? And the answer is nothing. And then your residents, and then they start thinking, wait a minute. So I have people suitcasing, rolling in and out of my apartment complex. That's not what I'm here to do. I don't have any background check. I don't have any insurance in them. And it's just chaos began to ensue. So what we did is built Apartment Jet to be that platform that managed and brought vacation short-term rentals to multifamily in a responsible manner. So create a partnership with TransUnion. So we do background checks. Partnership with Assurant to create a travel insurance. So that short-term stay every night, you could have 100K liability, 5K property damage, and then manage their calendars. In about 18 months, we built, I would call it a rudimentary property management system that's syndicated with Vrbo, HomeAway, and Airbnb initially. And then we sold that to Expedia Group after about 18 months.
Yeah, I went to the URL and it redirects to like a landing page on Expedia that has nothing to do with Apartment Jet. So like, how does that feel?
It's tough as a founder, and that was especially Apartment Jet, because that's something that there's very few times in your life that you have such clarity in what you want to do next.
Hmm.
And that was one of those moments that I just couldn't shake it. Some people have that with a symphony or a their next art project. I had that with Apartment Jet. I could see it so clearly, and it did so well. We were just taking off. We were changing the narrative in Austin and Chicago and just Nashville, just bringing in hundreds of units online. And they bought us because they saw how much revenue we were creating. We had probably close to 90% occupancy in these buildings with maybe $275 ADR. It was insane how much revenue we're creating. But then from a personal perspective, you put all that blood, sweat, and tears into it. But at the end of the day, I can't blame them for the decision because, there's a pandemic coming. Most of our inventory was urban and it just wasn't coming back. It still isn't back. So it was the right business decision to make. It just painfully, personally.
So is it not in operation anymore?
It is not. No,
Okay.
there was actually. So I was named the general manager of Expedia's multifamily group. So I was still educating them on how to expand in that space. Because if you're Verbo or HomeAway or even Expedia, and you look at the 20 million apartment units in the United States, you think, wow, that's a lot of opportunity.
Hmm.
It's unbelievable how much opportunity is there. So that's why they got into it. But just with a new leadership at Jeff Hurst is still the leader of Verbo, but you brought in a new CEO in Peter Kern, who reports right to Barry Diller. If that name rings a bell. And they just had to make some tough business decisions. Hotels, flights, cruises was not coming back. So they had to cut anything that wasn't making financial sense at the time.
And fast forward to more or less today with your understanding of vacation rentals, obviously taking into account the pandemic. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much potential is there still in the world of multifamily as it relates to vacation rentals?
Today, the opportunity is probably like a 6 or a 7. I think you go out
Okay.
12 months, another 9 to 12 months. It's more like an 11, do a little spinal tap.
Okay.
Let's go up to 11 here, So it's just unbelievable how much opportunity. And it's really, again, the sharing economy. It's figuring out how to roll this out responsibly. And as everyone in our industry knows, look at how far vacation is going just with the beach and mountain resort. We're not even close to getting back to the urban core just yet. And once that hits, it's going to be lights out.
So I want to talk a little bit more about Inhabit as promised. And when I met you in Destin there in Florida, I was talking to Scott Butler, who a lot of our vacation rental colleagues know. And he reminded me that in the early days of GSV, I don't think Inhabit existed yet, or at least it wasn't promoted that way.
Right. It was Vacation Brands at that time.
Vacation Brands, yeah. In the early days, Scott reminded me that Matt Landau, referred to his organization as an evil empire. And very candidly, I did not remember saying that.
Okay.
Although I did not deny saying that either, because it sounds like something I would have said when I'm on one of my rants. But my takeaway from our little conversation there was that we, as humans, tend to fear things that we don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hoping that you could explain to me why the organization bought these companies and what the business model of Inhabit is, so people can have an idea of the ecosystem.
First off, I don't blame you one bit, for making that presumption, and it's really goes back to part of the model is for Greater Sun Ventures and now Inhabit, not really to be very public about this. It's really to not take away from the value of the brands. So the model of thesis is to bring these groups together, but still step back and let them continue to flourish as their own brands. So that's why in the beginning, especially, it was, no, just focus on Streamline, focus on LiveRes, focus on Q4 Lunch and Blue Tent, those types of opportunities.
Do your thing.
Yeah, didn't want to be forward facing with vacation brands. That was not the idea, because at the end of the day, what is vacation brands? So it didn't have meaning to it. But as time rolled on, and it was partly the vacation rental industry. Individuals like yourself and other influencers in the space really intuitively picked up quite quickly. Hey, you're part of this group. You need to start acting like it, and that's about the time I came on as well. And then and part of Inhabit, and Inhabit, by the way, was formed by bringing together vacation brands and property brands, which is that residential piece, and bringing those two groups together, and that's where they formed Inhabit IQ. And also that's why they chose me, because I have expertise in both areas. But back to the evil empire point. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't want to forget that, cue the Darth Vader music. In a vacuum of information, people create their own narrative. And that's where we woke up and said, hey, you know what? We have to act in a manner that's befitting of this. And I think the first act that Scott took, I got to give him a lot of credit for this, is, be more participatory in with Verma. And I think one of the first things you saw, a little bit more money going into advocacy efforts. And then I think when the pandemic hit, it really sharpened our focus to recognize, hey, we really are in this together, and we have to be present. I don't think out of the gate that the vacation brand / GSV recognized how much of an impact the different groups that were brought on. And it really jumps out to me when you go to an event like Burma and you look around the room and you see all these booths, and maybe a third of them are Inhabit IQ booths. And it really is impactful to say, hey, we're a big part of this industry. Let's start acting in that more enterprise manner, but without the evil part.
So if you then apply what you've done with, like, say, church software,
yes,
to vacation rental here, the goal is to continue operating the church software ecosystem profitably over time, or is the goal to sell that entity?
it really depends. So sell is an interesting word in that how they did their church software, how now we're operating our platform right now. So you bring in these different investment groups to buy into it and then acquire more. And that's where we just received a great investment from Goldman Sachs in December of last year. So I think it speaks volume towards the thesis of bringing these groups together, but also speaks even more to the excitement of groups and interest in the vacation industry and the opportunity when you see somebody like a Goldman Sachs step up and say, wait a minute, there's something here. We want to be part of that.
Do we want to be part of that so that we can exit and make a lot of money, or we want to be part of that as a long-term strategy?
It's really both. It's opportunity driven. Right now, it's all, hey, let's be part of it and let's keep on growing this. Goldman Sachs, and I guess I don't want to speak for them, but as far as their investments, they're usually in the private equity. You have a 3 to 5 year thesis, is that you put the dollars in and then you look to either recapitalize or you turn it over to someone else. So that's the normal private equity model.
Quick note, folks, this is one thing that may be worth swiping from the world of private equity. Creating a 3 to 5 year thesis about your vacation rental business and its growth. And at the end of that period, assessing how things have played out financially and making some hard decisions. Let that marinate as we continue on this conversation.
Inhabit IQ, if you look at property brands and vacation brands, about 5 years into it right now, and I don't see any need to transition. It's just been a great growth trajectory, and we're still growing, just leaps and bounds. So I know the investors are very happy with the trajectory we're on, and are ready to look at more as we come out of the pandemic.
And as you begin to attend these conferences, and as you meet vacation rental managers who happen to walk into one of your software offices while they're on vacation, which is awesome. Bizarre and awesome at the same time. Yes, it represents our industry. What have you learned coming into the industry in this short period of time that makes it different to perhaps the people that you typically run in the circles with?
Yeah, the different part is that a lot more family groups, a lot more generational individuals that you speak to them, and they're in the Outer Banks, and they may be the third generation of vacation rental owners and managers. So you see that component, and then you flip it around, and then you'll see these more commercial type groups. Maybe they're aggregating some property managers, and then one thing I'm starting to see a little bit more of, and we can get in this maybe a little bit later, is that you're starting to see some enterprise organizations looking at the space and saying, similar to what happened in single family rental, you might start seeing some groups putting together a fund and not just property managers, but buying up vacation rentals. So seeing this huge, I guess not chasm isn't the right word, but array and also diversity of different individuals. But mostly I see it as just it's just so diverse in the people and the groups that we're talking to and engaging with. So you got to look at it from somebody that may be managing 10 vacation units, which if you and I own 10 vacation units, we're pretty happy, but some of these groups are managing, hundreds of units, or they're just managing 50. So it's quite an array of people that we're coming across.
Out of curiosity, would you consider at some point in your life starting your own vacation rental business?
That's a great question. I think one thing I've learned is how much work it is to run the vacation rental. So as I speak with the team members,
Mm-hmm.
one of the first things I hear, and hear people talking on stage, is it's a lot of work to run these. So my heart goes out to the groups, especially when it's cleaning. It's hard to find people right now. So I don't see myself running a vacation rental business per se. Maybe an investor in buying properties. I'll say that.
Okay, I like that. And if I'm not mistaken, the benefit to your
Yes.
customers, your partners who are the vacation rental managers, of being a client of a software company that Inhabit IQ owns is, I'm guessing that some of these inefficiencies, like all of our businesses have, can be centralized,
Hmm.
and others can have kind of a new set of resources to grow. Is that the way that
That's right.
owners and managers who are using these tools should think of it?
That's exactly right. Yeah, there's two sides of it. One side is, yes, we want to accentuate and support these synergies between these different groups, but at the same time, we don't want to be that evil empire. So we do want to make sure it's open platforms. Continue to partner. We have some amazing partners out there that are not part of the Inhabit family, and because we know our clients want to have access to best of breed individuals, and in a way that's a challenge to us to make our products better. So what we're doing is and that's one of the main projects I've been working on probably the last probably 4 or 5 months, is really creating a more robust partnership network, which has been amazing, as you know, in our industry, just some amazing partners. But then also, to your point, solidifying our efficiencies behind the scenes so that our customers and our clients and our partners have a more seamless experience when they're working with an Inhabit brand.
And I want to talk about your vision for the future and where you see all this going in a second. But I do want to dive a little bit deeper into consolidation in new industries, because I think you have a really unique perspective on that. And you kind of see, where the money flows. So for those who are sort of frazzled, who are rattled by the amount of consolidation that's taking place in the vacation rental industry right now, is this just a natural phenomenon for young, exciting sectors?
It really is. It is a natural phenomenon. It's normal. It's part of technology and disruption. Uh, do I think it's a point? It's almost akin to the five and dimes that merged into the Walmarts, that Walmart merged into Amazon. We're probably in that early stage of the five and dimes starting to consolidate. And you have to differentiate. Are there still mom and pop grocery stores and coffee shops and everything else? Absolutely. But you also see, the Amazon Fresh coming, and you see Starbucks on all these different corners. So there's a real need to differentiate yourself if you want to survive and continue to be that smaller player. I think that's where you differentiate. But our industry is very unique in that we're able to provide those bespoke experiences. Something that I think you've even mentioned, heard others mention, being part of the local scene, supporting the little league teams, being participatory in local governance. So it got to be locally relevant, but what you're going to see is these global, and I start out with regional, national, truly global players that are going to roll up a lot of these entities that we're seeing right now.
And do you think there's something to be said about embracing the existing brand, relationships, reputation, all the things that you kind of talked about earlier with the individual softwares? Is there a secret sauce there when it comes to vacation rentals, this ultra local craft?
Absolutely. I'd say it is a very secret sauce. And the secret is just, caring about the people that stay. You just can't replace that personal touch. It's also what makes this job, it's so rewarding as a vacation rental manager, and like you said, I've not lived it, but I've heard enough stories to feel it. It's a very personal experience. It's very critical to have that relationship with your guests and those travelers that keep on coming back day in, day out each year. Some family has their Outer Banks and they go to the ocean, and like your experience swimming with the manta rays, or they want to come back year after year, and people look forward to that. And that's a personal human experience. And you can't replace that with a big national brand. That's just gone. And I think the more that an individual or a group can keep that going, the more that experience remains unique and bespoke and lasts.
And now a word from our sponsors. Our interview with Eddie Gray, the housekeeping director at Newman Daily Resort Properties in Destin, Florida, was a really powerful one. And more specifically, Eddie's understanding of the way technology fits into a handmade hospitality enterprise was second to none. Here's first his opinion about Point Central, smart home automation, and how that fits within a streamlined business.
We went to keyless entry door locks, we use Point Central. So by having keyless entry, we give all of our guests a closing door code. So when that guest leaves that property and checks out, they must put a 6-digit closing code in that door. And when they do so, our corporate office reservations team get the notification, and all of my cleaning staff get the notification. So the cleaner goes in and cleans the property. Then they put an exit door code in when they're done. After the cleaner puts their closing code in, then the inspector is notified of that property. Then that inspector knows, now it's my time to get to this home, get it inspected thoroughly, and ready for the next family coming in before check-in. So when that inspector does their process, they put a final closing code in, and that is called the completion code. Reservations department and front desk get that notification. Now they can call that family that has paid for early check-in, that wanted to be in before 4, that their property is ready.
If you'd like to do a demo with Point Central, head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB. They're now taking on vacation rental managers with less than 25 properties, which is a complete game changer. Eddie's second comment was about our other sponsor, Breezeway, property care and operations platform. Here's how he described it.
We average on a busy Saturday 150 cleans in one day. I have some cleaners that will clean 3 properties to 20 properties. So I'm writing their name and all 20 units. Then I would have to text message them all those 20 that they have, and not just one crew. I would have to text message probably 40 crews to do 150 cleans in one day. And that was time. Now with Breezeway, when they came about and we purchased that, invested in it, we were able to implement and add our checklist that we created into their software platform. We were also able to utilize Breezeway by putting property specific notes for certain properties. We have some homes where owners like certain knickknacks in certain places. We have some homes that require certain grill cleaning and certain things. Well, that inspector would have to remember those things or keep a notebook about this property. Now in Breezeway, every unit is specific and you can add these details about this home.
If you'd like to do a demo with Breezeway and get free implementation valued at $1,000, head over to breezeway.io/VRMB. These two tools are complete game changers, and it's a pleasure to have them as sponsors. When they're organically brought up in the conversation with innovative owners and managers, that's when you know they're doing something awesome. Let's get back to the show. But so then what do the independent vacation rental managers who are full of everything that you just described, what's your advice to them when they see these bigger, richer, more powerful companies acquiring and in a lot of cases directly competing with them.
There's a book and a process called Strengths Finder that I follow, and have the teams get engaged, and it's more about focusing on your strengths. It's like saying, well, Michael Jordan, just how can he be the GOAT? He's just not a great swimmer. Like, why is but he's a heck of a basketball player, and you don't judge him by that. So if you go with what your strengths are, and if you're a group that relies on those relationships, you double down on those strengths and you double down that value, and you be who you are. You don't try to, make your name the next McDonald's. You don't try to, change it to be a national brand. You say, hey, you know what? We are who we are. We're going to be very valuable in that. We're going to do our gift baskets. We're going to have that personal touch, and you double down on it and not try to be something you're not.
So that's a theory that I've developed that I call the theory of limited edition.
Okay.
Which argues that one of a kind entities,
yes,
while they may not be necessarily made of more expensive materials
yes,
than their more commodity counterparts, they are rich with personality, with stories, with uniqueness. And that, if you've ever seen Antiques Roadshow on PBS, is what makes those individual products more valuable.
Absolutely. Limited edition. I love it. I'm adding that to my vernacular right now. Thank you.
Yep. You can quote me.
All right, good. I love it.
I'd like to talk about a little bit more about our time in Destin, because something kind of funny happened. So I was at this advocacy event, and it was a beautiful, beautiful event at Tiffany Edwards and Ben Edwards' home. And this was the first time I saw you, and I saw you on the telephone, and it was right in the middle of the auction when vacation rental vendors and large managers were being asked to contribute, to donate towards industry advocacy efforts. Do you remember this moment?
I do. Very cool.
So I see you like the auction's going on. You're like off by the bushes, sort of huddling into your cell phone. First of all, I'm curious, who was on that line?
That was Lisa Stinnett, our CEO.
Okay. That's your boss.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And what was your argument or your presentation to her?
Presentation was, here I am at this event. Step one, unexpected that an event like this, and this is part of me not being here enough and getting exposed to the group. Unexpected. And Tiffany warned us about 5 minutes before. Hey, we ask for money when people come to our house. I think she said it in a more eloquent manner than that.
Yeah, she did. She's like, if you've ever been to a dinner at our house, you know that there is an auction and you have to give money.
There you go. Yes, indeed. Yeah, she's a rock star, and Ben are great people. They were amazing hosts, to your point. A really enjoyable evening, and it was really, really fun to get to know everyone there. But then this, kind of board comes out and start raising money, and somebody walks up, and I think Steve walked up possibly and wrote $30,000, or maybe it's 15. I can't recall off the top of my head. And then it started going down the chain, and I thought, we have to do something. We have to come in big here. Part of that is that realization that we're a part of this. We're all in this together, and it's also knowing the impact that these dollars make upon the industry. Like we spoke about, just what happened in Florida, what happened in Hawaii, and it goes back to my days at Apartment Jet, where it's Airbnb and party houses, and we've just been swept up in that mindset, in that almost ear, in the IRE frustration in the space, in the news cycle, and we have to rise above that with our messaging. So, long story short, I get on that call, and I said, first off, it was pretty cool that Lisa answers my call at 7, 8 o'clock at night. Fortunately, I was only one glass of wine in.
Yeah, I was about to say that was good.
It was pretty good. So very, very, cognizant and coherent at the point in time. But, she said, hey, your call. If you think this is the right thing. I said, absolutely. She said, all right, let's do it. So we agreed on a number, which was $50,000, as you remember. And I think you worked me a little bit. I like to be out there a little bit, be excited, but at the same time, I'm not really a showboater. So I just kind of, hey, walk up, wrote the number. And I think it was Tiffany's mom that was just like saw it first. She was like, "Oh my goodness!" She was jumping up and down. It wasn't quite an Oprah "you get a car" moment, but it was pretty fun.
It was the biggest donation of the event.
Oh, true. Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
And was there a calculation in your head? Are you thinking proportional to every property that we're in touch with or every company that we own, or what was your thought process there?
Yeah, my thought is that, hey, we have 10 businesses. Let's go $5,000 per business. So 50 grand. That's where it came to.
More broadly, what do you view as the role of software companies, of vendors in general, of influence in this space, in the advocacy fight, specifically as it relates to fair regulation?
Right. I think the biggest part is realizing that we can't do it on our own. One of my experiences at Expedia Group, working with their advocacy team, if you're Expedia, you have your own team, really sharp group. Phil Minardi and his team, just outstanding individuals and well-connected. I realize very clearly that Inhabit does not have the resources. Actually, we're not going to allocate the resources to act at that level. And the flip side, Verma is growing in that space, but they don't have all the funds to support that either, nor does, some of our other partners and also competitors. So what we have to do as a group of our size, we have to work together. So that's where we went from, yes, putting forth some dollars, but also putting forth mind share and partnership in this, which is really the important part.
I think doing the right thing is always nice. We love to surround ourselves with people who do the right thing. But you're also a business, in fact, a very financially oriented business. How will you describe this line item of regulation to your investors so they understand it?
Yeah, spot on. And fourth great question.
No, fifth.
Fifth? Oh, man.
I've got a little notepad on the side of my desk here. Yeah, I just crossed the
All right,
fourth.
I have to be more stingy with my good question. Yes, we are a private equity firm, and we do, private equity run organization with some very, very astute investors. So we have to justify this, and it's frankly quite easy. You say, okay, a lot of our revenue comes from transactions. So here's what happened in Florida when all those short-term rentals were shut down, and here's what happened in Hawaii when those were shut down. Here's what happens when we're not ahead of the narrative. And it's actually, I wouldn't say it's simple calculus, but it's easier than you would think to produce the numbers that reflect the need to be a partner in this fight.
So it's really sustainable / financial thinking. Like, if you don't do this, you don't get to continue enjoying that.
Yeah, I wish I could say that we're just very altruistic, and it's definitely part of it. It's the right thing to do, but it's also the right financial thing to do, which, hey, makes it even better across the board.
This deserves another call out. It's another kind of logic that applies all the way up and down the food chain. And it's what maybe so many professed capitalists do not seem to understand. Advocacy and environmental activity is not about sympathy. It's about understanding the system that sustains your business but will collapse if you do not keep some balance. Profit is great. It's primordial. Just play out the consequences of your actions or your lack of actions beyond the next fiscal quarter. Don't sit back and cross your fingers. Become the protagonist of your vacation rental journey. And I would love to encourage anyone who's listening to give $50,000 right now.
There you go. Exactly.
I would like to encourage anyone who's listening to view advocacy through the same lens. And if you can give money, great. If you can get involved in your local vacation rental advocacy efforts, probably even greater.
That's right. And I'm not sure if you have this in your list to talk about, but the Right to Rent program, are you aware of that?
I am aware of it. It was not on my list, but I would like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we did as well. So to your point, what can you do if you're not ready to write a check for $50,000? We partnered with Verma, and actually Tiffany as well was part leader of this, and Scott Leggett on our side. Sidebar. One of the things that we changed coming on board is looking at our team and becoming more engaged in advocacy. We've put our money where our mouth is. And Scott Leggett, his daily job is advocacy and working with groups with Verma and others. So, another way to say, and much more than $50,000. He wakes up every morning. That's his only job. So that's what he's been doing. That's Scott Leggett, and just been a rock star. And but back to this right to rent program, partner with Verma, and said, how can we do this in a way? How can we create more dollars for advocacy in a meaningful manner? And what we landed upon was allowing property managers to add a small dollar amount, probably $3 per stay, $1, $2, $3 per stay, whatever they decide to do. And we first did this, create a program within Streamline where that they could say, okay, each stay is going to donate $3 for advocacy. And what we've done is written in our software so that those dollars flow directly into the Verma funds. So Inhabit makes no money off this. It just flows right through. And that goes back to doing the right thing. So if you have property managers, today it's only in Streamline. We'll eventually evolve this after we get out of beta into live res and others. And then eventually we'll, even hopefully it'll be on other competitive platforms that are not Inhabit. So the idea there is to allow property managers to support advocacy with very small micro donations, if you will, which should grow significantly and make a big impact.
And I'd also like to just get people thinking, supporting advocacy financially on a nightly basis is great. But there's also supporting anything that sustains your community.
There you go.
On a nightly basis. That's also great. So donations to local organizations, contributions to groups, and stepping forth and getting involved in the local community. If we're thinking about this on a level of giving back, and every vacation rental professional is to some degree giving back, I think we're in a really, really good place.
That's right.
Beyond the advocacy, are there any other big looming risks or threats that you explain to investors?
Yeah, I think the pandemic taught us that, travel is fragile and it can be taken away. So I think that was a part of it. So that was something we had to learn. I think, as with most things in life, just like us in the vacuum of information, and a little bit strong word, but a little bit ignorance on the part of groups that don't live and breathe like we do vacation. If they lump us into the quote unquote party houses and violating your leases and things, that's where it's dangerous. So it's really about educating the world, and your neighbors and friends of what it means to be in the vacation rental industry, how it's different. And I think it goes back to, again, that the second night event that you and I spoke to your team, Stuart and the team, and there was a state representative there. And that gentleman learned a lot, mostly because he showed up, hats off to him. But a lot of us spent time educating him. And it was fascinating how some of the people he was going up against, how they viewed our industry really from an incorrect lens. So I think it's a lot about just education and talking to these groups and removing their I guess negative and incorrect bias of what we're trying to do.
That guy was incredibly young, or at least looked incredibly young, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was an ex-Marine too, I think.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah.
How have you done all this? And I think the education thing is something that most owners and managers that think to themselves, I don't really have time for that. I'm busy doing all this.
Right.
But it is kind of part of the job. Like, you're kind of already an activist if you're constantly championing what a professional vacation rental is to the mainstream public. It's just kind of getting a little bit more refined about that communication, no?
That's exactly right. You're spot on. Yeah, just talking about what we do, how much of an impact. I think that's part of the things, when we work with the advocacy teams, what impacts a state senator or even a U.S. senator or a representative. We go back to the narrative of, these are small business owners. This is how they live and breathe. They're impactful to their local community. And that's a narrative that is real. So we need to
Yeah.
make sure that message sticks and is heard.
And I have one other message that I've actually only recently really settled on. And
Okay.
it's so simple, but I think it's something that we can all rally behind. And it's also very truthful. It is that this industry, when done properly,
Mhm.
is incredibly hard.
Yes.
And you gave us a version of that earlier. But if we can be upfront about how very, really difficult it is to run
Yes.
a successful vacation rental company,
Mhm.
I think we more accurately calibrate the expectations of hosts
Yes.
who are entering after watching, the Netflix show
Mhm.
and thinking it's going to be an overnight
Right.
success. And that's for us at least the most immediate people to educate. There's also the guests, of course. No,
You're absolutely right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It'd be so much easier if there weren't guests. But
right. If we only actually had one client to focus on.
exactly. But everything to cleaners and the amount of turnover of individuals and the late nights and somebody needs a crib, a rollaway crib, and then the lock doesn't work, and it's just so many different things that can go wrong, and it's one unit. But on the flip side, this is someone's vacation. Somebody may have been saving up for 6 months, maybe their whole life, to go on this one vacation to have this experience, and you want to make this impactful to them. So we have the ability to change people's lives for the good, in so many ways. So it really is impactful about, and it's meaningful about what we do on a daily basis.
Yeah, love that. Um, Final question, but it's three parts naturally.
Okay. All right.
With your understanding of finance and your understanding of real estate and your understanding of entrepreneurship and now the vacation rental sector, where do you see our sector in the next part one, 12 months, part two, 3 years, part three, 10 years from now?
Love it. 12 months, 3 years, and 10 years.
Yeah.
Great.
Great
All right.
question, would you say?
Yes. Outstanding. So I wrote it down so I can segment off my thoughts. So 12 months, big question. So 12 months, what I see in the next 12 months, continued growth. And it's pretty simple because I have visibility to all these occupancy numbers that I see. ADR, our rates are going to continue to climb. And I'm only talking about the US for now. Rates continue to climb. People continue to stay. People are coming out of the pandemic, and I think revenge travel is one of the terms I've heard. We're going to show you COVID, and people are traveling and moving in droves, and they want to stay at these places and they want to live again and explore. So I see continued growth, continued, not enough inventory. Uh, Everything that's even possible to rent is going to be rented, and those rates are going to continue to grow. So I think that's the biggest thing. Any other thoughts, or you want me to go deeper on the 12-month?
No, I like that. I think that sounds about right. And I would also say for those outside the US, almost all the same trends that we've noticed here seem to be applying there on delay
Yes,
based on the restrictions and easing of travel boundaries.
that's exactly right. Yeah, as the restrictions open up, you see the exact same thing. Just the inflow of people and those ADRs rocket up. But I think one of the things we'll have to watch for in those spaces, and we saw this in the U.S. as well because we're fortunate to recover, is that some of these businesses just are unable to come back. So you're seeing a lot of that's why the inventory is so low. These groups had to shut their doors, and now to reopen, it's very difficult. It's like restaurants right now, where you go in and you go, why is it taking 30 minutes for me to get my food? And well, it's because there's less people. They haven't staffed up yet, and we see the same thing in vacation.
I've never heard this before. You just dropped rentals. You would just call it the vacation sector. I love that.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't know I said that, but you're right. It's that may lead to 3 year and 10 year, to your point. So
Okay, so let's go to 3 years.
yeah, heck of a segue. So rentals, I think I want to make sure I get the stat right. So we may have to do a reference here, but I believe on Airbnb's last earnings call, I believe Brian Chesky was saying that I believe 24% of their stays last quarter were over 28 days. That is a sea change in mindset, in approach, in how you look at vacation rentals, rentals in general, that people are, they'll go to I keep on picking on Outer Banks, but I just love it. So you go to the Outer Banks, but you'll say, you know what? I'm working remote. Why should I stay here a week? Let's just stay for 2 months. And that's what we're going to continue to see changing, is more almost nomadic mindset. But here's the nuance, Matt, that people need to consider, is that when people are nomadic and they go where the weather is, and if the inventory is finite, you're going to see those ADRs just climb up where it's just unsustainable. But in order to keep the ADRs in the backside, now all of a sudden the prices drop out of season, and you want to fill that gap, you're going to have a reverse nomadic process as well. And that may be individuals that are, maybe they're younger college students, maybe different people that are able to travel more. Now you're going to see, like, well, what do I do when ski season's out? Well, you get these people right out of college and they get to pay a lower rate and they're living a great life, but they're just not there during those key peak seasons. So I think you're going to see a change in how people live and how they work. And we're already seeing that transform right now. And that's in the next 3 years.
And just to clarify, do you have any warnings if a vacation rental manager just sees what the market is demanding and continues increasing those nightly rates? Are there any concerns about the nightly rate getting so expensive that the value perceived by the guest yields negative reviews?
We have not seen that warning yet, but I believe you're onto something, and that will be part of the future, where people are paying above hotel rates, even per room, if you will, and they're not getting that hotel experience. And that's a realistic expectation. And that's where you'll see the hotel industry slowly come back, and we're just talking about vacation. We're not even talking about the business side of it just yet. But business travel will start to come back. But yes, I think you're onto something. But then also revenue management, that's where that comes into play. And you're going to hear more and more, I'm saying the next 18 months. And our partners, great revenue managers, we're doubling down on our revenue management ourselves. That's one of the reasons that client partner of ours was in town. They wanted to meet face to face with a revenue manager that has changed their life, changed their family business. They have 100 properties. And because we're able to manage their pricing dynamically, it's really changed how they look at their revenue and their ADR.
I would love for all my revenue management company friends and industry people who are doing this on a regular basis, just to have this conversation in the back of your mind when the dynamic pricing tool tells you to keep increasing the price. It might be the price that you can get for this stay. Just think about the consequences on the guests over time.
It's a great call out, and it's where, revenue management, and this is where, now I'll lead into 10 years.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. It'll go from revenue management to yield management. And I can say that with confidence because I was part of that transition in the multifamily, in that residential space. We went from managing the rates to yield management. And I'll start off in the multifamily and apartment buildings. If you're managing to yield, you can maybe change your credit profile of the person that you have stay for 12 months. You can change how much deposit they put down. You can change the length of stay from, say, 12-month normal contract to a 6 or a 9-month. Now you take that into the vacation space. And this is why it's probably 10 years out, maybe more like 5, and then lead into 10 will become just normal. But to your point, then you bring in reviews. So it's one thing to change the rates, and we're just getting there right now in our algorithms. I think it's going to be table stakes in 3 years. But in 10 years, yes, it'll take into account, okay, the reviews. Do we want to improve that? What is the ratings? What is the price that people are staying? What is the deposit? What is the insurance? Will there be screening? Will there be experiences that we add on, such as, okay, well, then let's make sure that there's different cable or internet, other amenities that we provide in addition to this travel, and making it more of an experience driven. So that's kind of where I see us going in 10 years.
As you contemplate Eric's thesis, for the future of our vacation rental industry, I'd encourage you to think about yours. Chances are this is the first time you've heard the candid thought process of someone in a position like Eric. At least it was the first time that I have. And whether you agree with his ideas or disagree, what you can't do is ignore them. Because big money has entered the cottage industry we call home. Think about the small town parade that started off quaint and personal, that's now so big it's on national television, with massive floats and police barricades and hordes of people that you don't recognize that weren't in attendance at the beginning. We, as vacation rental leaders, can either participate in that parade, or we can sit and watch it from the sidelines. But what we cannot do is stop that parade from coming through town. If you'd like to join me and nearly 1,000 other independent owners and managers who have decided to participate in this parade together to build businesses that make us money doing what we love on our own terms, consider joining VRMB communities, where every member of our forum, from the smallest to the largest, is building a limited edition brand that works. You can sign up at vrmb.com/community. And just a bit of a reminder, this business is incredibly hard, and you are very good at it. One big way to lighten your load is to utilize strength in numbers, and we do that by working together. This was episode 113. You can download the show notes and any resource links at vrmb.com/113. Until next time.